Broadcasting live from the Napa Valley wine country just outside the mystical Sonoma Mountains, this is Beyond the Strange. Hola, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Dave Cruz, along with Russ Bailey. And it is Monday, November 8th, 2021, the year of our Lord. Streaming on the Strange Days Media Digital Network. And again, it's back to the paranormal tonight for sure. We have a great show tonight. We have Dave and Carla will be joining us here in a bit. And but first, please go to beyondthestrange.com to register for your monthly newsletter. Went out a little later this month, but that's unfortunate, but it happens sometimes. But we did get it out, and we'll be having a follow-up newsletter for that one, getting back into the swing of things after that whole COVID fiasco. But anyways, we are talking about the paranormal tonight. We're not talking about anything else. So let's get on with it. Please follow me on Twitter at StrangeDave70. You can follow the show at Beyond the Strange Days 2015. And there is an official Beyond the Strange Discord channel, the Strange Chat Room, where there are plenty of fringe topics. As a matter of fact, we are streaming there right now. So you can pop into the audio stream that's on right now, and you can also listen while you chat in the Strange Chat Discord channel. You can reach me on Telegram and Signal under Dave Cruz, or write me an email with questions and comments, or you can just send me an email at dave@beyondthestrange.com. Make sure to subscribe to Beyond the Strange YouTube channel and also the Twitch. Follow, like, and hit that button for the live streams that pop up. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Russ Bailey. Russ, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, sir. Great to be here. Great to see everybody in the Twitch chat tonight. We've got Mike J, we got Dragon Rose, and we got Pat the Elf, and he's kind of concerned that we're not going to be talking about Oreos tonight.
We're not talking about Oreos tonight. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll dedicate a whole show probably on PAP to Oreos. How about that, Pat? And we'll have you as a guest. So everyone stick around for that show. It's going to be a great one. Awesome. And I know we have people that are in the YouTube chat as well, in the YouTube channel. And we appreciate you joining us there also as well. It's going to be a great show tonight. And let me go ahead and bring in, we have Dave and Carla. They've been close friends since 1998, feeling a deeper spiritual kinship for each other. Dave and Carla had spontaneous memories of 29 past lives together while meditating. They went on to get past life regression training with Dr. Brian Weiss. Now Dave and Carla spread the message of love and kindness and teach holistic approaches to healing. They teach meditation at their local university and senior centers. Dr. Dave was a registered nurse for 10 years before returning to medical school. He recently retired from his private practice. Dr. Dave now serves as the vice president of medical affairs at a small midwestern hospital. Carla recently retired as his office manager. They now share their message together and the gift of past lives, and love is the answer. And you can see that in the back of Dr. Dave's background there as soon as we get into that screen. And there we go. And everyone, please welcome Dave and Carla. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
It's a
Having us.
pleasure to be here, Dave and Russ. We're glad that we could be on.
Oh, we're so happy to have you tonight. And yeah, we've got a lot to cover tonight, and we have so little time. But it's really great that you're here. So let's go ahead and learn a little bit about you, Dave, and then we can learn a little bit about Carla.
Okay, so I've been a physician was about 25 years, a nurse for 10 years before that. Our story sort of starts when electronic medical records started to invade healthcare. Not being 20 and 21 or 28 years old anymore when this hit, it was quite the change for the office that was used to dictation and paper charts and everything written down. And for your listeners who didn't go through that, some of us older physicians thought it was absolute awful. I became one of the most grouchiest people in the world. I was showing up at the office at 5:30 in the morning. I was opening up charts, getting things set up on the computer. A lot of times I didn't get done those first 3-4 months till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Absolutely hated it. I didn't realize how grouchy I was getting till Carla finally showed up because she was my office manager and said, "You're hopeless," or to some extent. And you could tell him what you thought of me, Carla.
Well, I love to say that Dave is normally a cross between Yogi Bear and Fred Flintstone. So, you can see he's a pretty nice guy. But he was just so unapproachable. And I said to him, do I need to call a counselor for you? And of course, he did what all men do. They said, no, I don't. He said, I don't need any help. But then I said, I was reading in AARP magazine, of all the unlikely publications, the benefits to meditation. And they're vast, and Dave can tell you in a minute what all the benefits are. But I took the article into the office and I said to Dave, what if we try this as an office? We have a small office. We could start before, and, it would help all of us. So Dave said, okay. And we decided to meditate. And of course, that meant coming in at 7:30 because the patients would start at 8. And we did that the first day, and all of us talked about how it was very difficult to close our minds down. But we did it anyway. And then the second day, we all talked about how we saw different colored lights. All of us saw different colors. Well, then the third day, the other girls in the office said, we don't want to come in early. We'll do it at home. So that meant it was just Dave and I. And we decided we were still going to meditate, and we did it for about a half an hour, and then we heard the patients coming in, so we got up and went to our adjoining offices. And Dave came up to me and he said, Carla, I know you're going to think this is really strange and I've gone over the edge, but I think during meditation I was talking to your mother. Now, my first question was, I believed it, but my first question was, why is my mother coming to him? I was sitting there meditating too. But my mother had died 18 years before, and Dave never met her. And so he, went on to say that she kept showing him a shoe, and she was jovial and laughing and everything. And I went over to the computer and I brought up a whole bunch of different pairs of shoes, and I said, show me which one. And he went over and he pointed to this shoe. Now, my mother was a ballroom dancer. She wore a short, little pump, open toe sandal every time she ballroom danced, went to church, or dressed up. And I brought up like 60 pairs of shoes, and he walked over and pointed to the exact pair she always wore. And so, like the
Oh,
chill went up my back. And my sister also worked in the office, and she went in the back and she brought up her wallet with a picture of my mother, and she turned it around and showed it to Dave. And Dave got very emotional. And we both said, what's the matter? And he said, that's who I was just talking to. So, Dave, go ahead.
mm.
So again, as a physician, my first thought was I've gone over the edge. I'm not in contact with reality.
I feel
I
that way
don't know
too.
what I'm going to, I don't know what am I going to do now? I've got to take care of patients. I'm going to have to pretend the rest of the day that I'm not a crazy person. And we survived. We waited till lunchtime. We meditated again, trying to contact Carla's mother again. We worked through the day, and meditation really did help me because we shut off all the computers for 30 minutes, and it was calming because I was playing with the computer for 12, 13 hours a day while this whole thing started and the fiasco of electronic medical records. So we kept meditating. And then there was another day, a few days later, where this other woman started talking to me. And she told me her name was Isabella. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I talked to Carla's mother, but now this woman is actually talking to me and I understand everything she said. And it's clear. I'll say clear. It's different because I get into the meditation. I feel like there's nothing. And then this woman starts to talk to me. And she tells me, I have been with you for 6,000 years. I'm like, okay, I've been here 55 years. Okay. I don't know anything about this 6,000 year thing. I don't understand this. I'm trying to tell Carla. And she says, there are many past lives and I will help you. I think again, I'm still crazy. I'm meditating at home, and suddenly I have this memory. And it's a memory from 1962 when I'm 3 years old. And so I come in and I start to tell Carla and Paul about this memory. Now, when I was 3 years old, I lived in Nebraska.
Okay.
My father went to the Korean War. He went to college on the GI Bill. And in the summer of 1962, he put us in a car and we drove to Boston. He went to graduate school in Boston for the summer, and then he was going to go back to his teaching job. So in Boston, I remember, driving over the mountains and going through West Virginia and the edges of Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania and all that, where all the mountains are. So that's just for you, Russ.
Yeah.
But we got to Boston, and we lived in little student housing, square box places, but they took me to the beach. And I went to the beach and I could see Ferris wheels, and I had never seen the ocean. There was Ferris wheels and there was roller coasters, shops along the side, people running all over the beach. And I was running on the beach, screaming like you would expect a 3-year-old to do. And suddenly this little girl jumped up and punched me and hit me and knocked me down flat on the sand.
Oh, wow.
She sat on my chest. She gave me a kiss on the forehead. She jumped up. She had this little 2-piece blue ruffled bathing suit. And she yelled, "Be quiet, you're bothering my family."
Okay.
As I'm telling the story, Carla goes, when were you in Boston? And I said, 1962. And she said, go ahead, Carla.
I said that was me. And I didn't need to meditate to remember that. We were from the good Catholic family. I was the youngest of 6 girls. My parents were always splitting up, getting back together. And that particular day, we were not well off. We didn't have our own car. My father rented 2 cabs, and we all went down to the beach. And when Dave started to talk about this beach, I knew exactly what beach it was because Revere Beach had an amusement park with it. It wasn't just, sand and water. And as he described it with the Ferris wheel and all those things in the background, my sister and I knew instantly that it was Revere. Well, that particular day when we got there, for whatever reason, I didn't have a bathing suit, and I always would have inherited one from my older sisters. But we all went across the street, and I got my first brand new 2-piece blue ruffled bathing suit. And so when Dave told me this, of course, another chill up my spine because I couldn't understand how he could possibly know this.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the other part of the story is I bought the practice where Carla was the office manager when I was 38. So that was 35 years before. We never knew we had met each other in this life before, and then we met again.
Wow.
And so that sort of set us up wondering, how does this work? What's happening? And a few days later, I had another memory. And this memory I was standing suddenly in an alley, and I looked across the dark alley, and there was Carla. Now, when I say Carla, I knew it was Carla, though she didn't look exactly the same. She was 21 years old. She still had the same steel blue eyes and blonde hair, but it was slicked back. She had a little gold band on, satiny shirt, fringes. She looked like a flapper. Suddenly, there were big flashes behind her. I heard bang. I got hit in the chest, and I was thrown on the ground. And I knew I was laying there and dying. I'm telling her this story, and I said, I don't understand this. The next day, meditating, I got more of the same story. But this time, I got the story where I met the flapper at a wedding of a man named Angelo. And at the wedding, I wanted to meet her so bad because she was singing up front, and I met her. I had asked her to breakfast, and she went to breakfast the next morning with me at a restaurant called Marino's. And after the breakfast, we went for a walk along Lake Michigan in Chicago's coastline. Now, I've never lived in Chicago, but we're walking along Lake Michigan's coastline, and she tells me that her name is Ruby Donaldson. She tells me her father's name is James. Her mother's name is Anna. She moved to Chicago to become a dressmaker. She's one of 11 kids, and she's from Bullock, Georgia. She works for a man named Angelo Jenna at a speakeasy called DeAndre's. And I'm telling Carla all of these things that were happening and what happened. And Ruby ran away from me after that morning and didn't want to see me again. Carla went because she's the most curious woman that I've ever met. Looking. Carla?
Well, the first place I went was Ancestry.com. I figured, well, I should be able to find something. And Ruby Donaldson is a common name in Bullock, Georgia, in that area. But had I not had the additional information, the year she was born, 1904, the fact that her parents were James and Anna Donaldson, and she was one of 11 children, I was able to corroborate all of that information. And then looking through Chicago newspapers in 1925, January the 10th, 1925, Angelo Jenna married Lucille Spinola at Ashland Auditorium in Chicago. They had over 3,000 guests, mobsters, I'm sure. Their wedding cake was over 10 feet tall. So I found an article about the wedding. I found an article with their wedding cake. And then Dave's name during that his name was JJ. JJ actually worked for the banker Henry Spinola. His sister was Lucille that married Angelo. I also found an article where Henry Spinola had been shot and killed in a restaurant exactly a year after that, January 10th, 1926. So I was able to tell Dave, I found corroborating evidence. I mean, we can't be cracking up here because this is real and we never heard of it. And I never knew that Angelo Jenna was the head mobster right before Al Capone. Now, if you follow that sort of thing, you probably know who Angelo Jenna was, but I had never heard of him. So we continued to meditate. Dave kept getting objects and faces and words, and we just wrote everything down because none of it made any sense to us.
And there was a day when I was trying to tell Carla another memory that I had of Ruby. And when I was talking to her, I literally felt like I became J.J. Wright. And at that moment, as I was talking, Carla started to finish the sentences and knew the answers and knew the right thing to say next. And she started to have the same memory. And we felt really strange because it was emotionally charged. And we took off and went to our own rooms and said, well, we got to go see patients real quick. And this is strange. But all of this started us on a little journey. I started to research this because Isabella said that you have had many lives. So we started doing some research on reincarnation. We found the research by Ian Stevenson out of the University of Virginia, the 2,500 some kids that they have some verified past life memories that they've been writing about. We started to find out things about meditation, past life regression, and the time between wake and sleep when a lot of people have these spontaneous memories. And we found that in the brain, there's both alpha and theta waves that increase during meditation, during past life regression hypnosis, the time between wake and sleep, and that alpha and theta waves are associated with increased memory. And so I'm like, okay, as a physician, some of this is starting to make some sense. There's some science behind this. But as we meditated, we kept getting more and more memories. And we started to realize that the memories were saved in our subconscious. And then we started finding things that on neuropsychiatry, where you start to save everything in your subconscious as a positive and negative memory. And that made us start to wonder about things like karma and all those kind of issues, because the subconscious, if it follows you from life to life, that part of your consciousness is still there. You can have memories of a life before. Just like I had a memory from 1962 in this life that I had never remembered. Then I had a life in 1925 that I had never remembered. And soon we had lives back as far as 6,000 years ago. And we started to journal them all. We finally, after we got all of these lives that marched out, and we found 42 for me and 34 for Carla. And we found out that we were in each other's lives 29 different times. Carla, again, is the most curious woman. Isabella started to talk to us almost on a daily basis. And Carla would come in with a list of 30 questions. And Isabella would tell us the answers, and we wrote them down. And as we were writing them down, pretty soon we realized we should go to past life regression training. So we went with Dr. Brian Weiss, who was sort of an expert at the time and has been an expert. He's a psychiatrist down at Mount Sinai, and he was the head of their department. And he had accidentally 30, 40 years ago taken somebody back to their childhood, trying to find out about childhood trauma, and they went back farther. And so we trained with him more just to understand even the process. And we also trained with him to get around other people who are having like experiences, because as soon as you start to have this experience, the number of people you can talk to about it gets a lot smaller. And certainly as a doctor, it's one of those things you don't talk about every day in the office.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. We got an interesting comment from Miles Moonbases in the YouTube chat. And Miles says, I've been documenting dream states where there are different versions of myself. In this state, I have full memory of the people, places, and even relationships. None of these memories are from this time. It's a state that it's in between being asleep and awake. What do you guys say to that?
Certainly the time between wake and sleep is when many people have these memories. Now, I think what he's related to is people that say that they have an existence in some other multiple universe. And I'm going to tell you, based on the quantum physics discussions that I've had with some physicists, if there is a multiverse where there's another universe that has a copy of you, you do not interact with that copy, and it's not you. It's just like if you have a twin, the twin does not have your same experience, so it's not you. It's different. Now, if he's experiencing that, that's an interesting phenomenon, because there is an unseen realm that we're not connected to. I'm not really big on all the quantum physics ideas except for consciousness, because that's at least a great topic as far as an existence of the mind outside of the body.
Yes, absolutely.
And for everybody who's into any kind of a paranormal existence at all, this idea that you can connect with a soul that's not on this plane or in this existence and not in this physical world, It may explain all those experiences that people have with ghosts, the experiences that mediums have. It may have some experience with what people call ETs. They're having an experience that's not in this world, or people who have out of body experiences. All those are ways to connect with the consciousness or soul that's not part of this physical existence.
So I got a question.
Sure.
During your meditation, have you ever channeled like extraterrestrial or angelic beings or anything like that? Something not of this world, so to speak.
Angelic.
Angelic, definitely. I see the angel Gabriel, and I know everybody will say, why didn't he say the archangel? Because the angels actually, when they talk to you, say, we really don't have a hierarchy. We know our job. We don't have to say we're the top angel, because we're all angels. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But Carla has had Estes come to her. Gabriel's come to her. I've seen Michael. You've actually had Mariel to come to
Ariel,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting, because our third book is a lot about what the angels do, the angel communications that we've had. Our first book is The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. And we talk about 20 of our past lives and the lessons that we learned, because in each one of those lives, there's something we did wrong and a reason we had to come back. And those are all related to those karmic things. And I was telling you, things are saved in the subconscious as either positive or negative. We all remember that the first time you touch something really hot, it burned you. The second time you touch something hot, you actually pull back faster. And so if our subconscious can save those things, even if there's that veil of forgetfulness, those things in our past life that may have been negative experiences that we still remember in our subconscious will protect us in this one. And we will try to avoid them.
Right. So that's kind of where I fall in, because I've been told that I've lived different past lives, and I just don't understand how I can like just wake up in this time period right now, but I don't remember any of the other stuff that's happened before this life.
Correct.
So, and I've been in different religions. Well, I wouldn't say religions. It's always been Christianity, but it's been different denominations, and I've learned little bits of pieces here and there, and from what I understand, like our Creator or God or whatever we choose to call it, Source, we all come from there, and
correct,
we choose to come down here and pick the life that we want. That's one of the teachings that I've learned. So when
that's one of the theories, Dave. So
okay,
we can talk about that.
And I know Carla knows where I'm going with this. And so, one of those, so we choose that life, but then after we live our life, we go back home, or
correct,
we teach, or we teach as well. That's one of the teachings that was taught to me.
Okay. So I will tell you, Dave, that in every one of our experiences, God is present. There was even a day, you were talking about angelic beings. There was even a day Carla was asking just who is God? And we were meditating, and suddenly God said, I am. God has told us that he prefers the name, and that we're, as his real name is the one you see in the Hebrew. But he says we're really not supposed to use that name. We should just use God. So I try not to say YHY, because if that's what God says, I'm kind of going to go with that. Isabella says the Bible has a lot of good information, good educational information in it. What we've learned is that if you go back to Hebrew teachings or Jewish teaching, reincarnation was always part of the plan. And it's still part of the teaching in the Kabbalah. If you go to Christianity's beginning and you talk about the very first real doctrine person who wrote most of the early church doctrine, his name was Origen, and he was from Alexandria, Egypt. He was trained as a Jewish rabbi and converted to Christianity. Origen wrote almost all of the early doctrine in 200 AD. And when he was writing his doctrine was that Jesus was from God, not God, that transmigration of the soul was normal, that the soul lived before this life and after this life, and it was not breathed into just one single life. And that was all the teachings that Origen was writing from what he got when he was reading early Christian doctrines in paper and using the Jewish Torah and Hebrew teachings. In 325, the Council of Nicaea meets, and they vote that Jesus is God. In 400 AD, the church fathers get together and they excommunicate Origen 200 years after his death and call him a heretic. Because if you have the teaching of reincarnation, much like the Jewish one, which was, if you haven't learned all you're supposed to learn, you may come back for another atonement time. You may have more than one life. If you have another chance, then Jesus's death on the cross cannot be the one reconciliation that fixes all of mankind. And so that's where things like karma come in. That's right. where those issues, and karma is really, put it in the easy term, it's the bookkeeping. Which lessons haven't you learned? What haven't you overcome yet? And Isabella gave us a lesson. She said the real simple lesson, without reading everything in the Bible and everything that you're going to read in all the philosophers, is live a life without conceit, jealousy, selfishness, or unforgiveness, and make every choice out of love. And if you do that, you will finish all the karmic things that you need to finish and get off the karmic wheel. When you get to our third book, the manual, it talks about how you're actually given angels to help you. And we can discuss that if you need to a little bit later.
Oh yeah, no,
Somebody
absolutely.
had a question.
I think, Russ, did you see if there was a question? Or was it a comment?
Well, more of a comment from Dragon Rose in the Twitch chat. Dragon Rose says, my uncle was a priest and he believed in reincarnation. He meditated, had spirit guides, and taught a course called Silva Mind Control. I believe the church knows about reincarnation, but chooses to keep it from the mainstream to keep control. What do you guys think of that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This reincarnation was part of the teaching at one time. Again, you can't control the people. And even if you go back to the Old Testament talks about Sheol, which is a place dead people go. When the Greeks started writing, it was Hades, and it's just a place dead people go. And then the other place in the Old Testament they talk about is the Valley of Johannam, which is the literal place. It's the ditch outside of Jerusalem. It's part of the sewage system of Jerusalem. It drains down when they built Jerusalem, and it drains into the Valley of Johannam. The judges and the kings used to put their illegitimate children to death there. Nero put Christians and Jews to death there and would light them on fire. And with the sewage system there, it would have spontaneous combustion and burn. So it was known as the place of burning. In the King James Bible, King James's wife was of Germanic descent. And the god of the underworld, a pagan god of the underworld in Germany at that time, was called Helya. And so they changed Hades, Sheol, and the Valley of Johannam to hell in the King James Version of the Bible. And so there is no hell. There is no devil and evil trying to search and hunt you down. The evil is inside you, and it's your ego, which makes you conceited, selfish, jealous, or unforgiving.
So if we have reincarnation, do we ever run out of souls?
Everybody asks that question. There are still people having their first life. So it is possible for people to not have past life memories because this could be their first life. The other thing that's true, and we found it even because we've mapped out all of ours. Early on, we had times that were 300 or 400 years sometimes between lives. And now we've had times that are much shorter, because to reincarnate people and have the population as it is, you can't spend as much time in the time between, or else you have to kind of rotate through the system more faster, if that makes sense. And so
Dave,
culture, yeah.
And no, Dave Cruz. Dave, our Dave was 55 before he started to remember any of his past lives. So perhaps it's not time for you. Many people with past life memories say it was something traumatic, because of course we learn through adversity. So traumatic memories are the ones that surface, and it could be it's not time for you, or you have fear around it, because that stops a lot of memories. That stops a lot of thinking. I didn't meditate. I tried to meditate, but of course I was raised Catholic many years ago, and everybody told me, oh, you'll conjure up the devil. You'll conjure up bad things. Well, no, you can't conjure up the devil, because there is no devil. Once I opened my mind, what happened was what is intended to happen, and that is I connect with the spiritual world, and they can reach me. And if they can reach me, they can help me. And that's the case with everybody.
And Carla soon met her spirit guide, which was Elizabeth. I met mine, which was Isabella. We've had communication with angels. We know angels are with us. If you believe in the afterlife or some version of that, it's not in fact, I kind of believe reincarnation sort of proves that angels and God and spirit guides and etc. exists.
Right.
And there's enough actual science that there are kids with spontaneous memories that can't fake it. And so there's all this evidence out there. And when you start going through it and you find a life like we did with Ruby and JJ, where we found those people existed, and certainly they were a memory that we didn't have. And then we start finding other memories, and we can't corroborate them like we did Ruby and JJ. But we've corroborated things that we certainly didn't think we knew, if we did, about places and times. We found a life in a place called Thrace. I had never heard of Thrace. I knew that my owner was a Thracian warrior. We went looking. It's 3750 BC, and it's the area between Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. And it was a warrior class at that time, and they also had lots of sheep. And I was a sheep herder, and Carla was a sheep herder, and we met each other on adjacent mountains. Now, it's a rocky, mountainous place right next to the sea in that corner. It's enough to know that it existed was enough to help us confirm that if we're having this memory of a place we never knew existed, and it does exist, then there's a lot going on here.
So we have another message or a question in the Twitch chat from CMJ, fellow Black Sky Paranormal member Carl Gerald. Give it up for Carl tonight.
What's up, Carl?
Yeah. He says, do some people earn or deserve reincarnation? or is it universal?
Interesting question.
That's a great question. It's universal, and I always worry for some people when I get into this, but there's some religious reality here. The only way, and I shouldn't say that because I'm applying rules the wrong way, but if God is mercy and shows both mercy and justice,
yes,
everyone has to go through the same system. And so there has to be some sort of karma. There has to be some sort of responsibility for your own actions. And so that comes back, but the mercy is applied very fairly because everybody gets another chance. And if you go through the system long enough and learn all of the lessons that you need to learn, you can get off this wheel. Now, as we were going through things, we started to find patterns. We found patterns where I was Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. I've lived every side of all sorts of different sides. We have a series of lives where we were Vikings fighting the Scottish. The next life, we were Scottish fighting the English. Then we were English fighting the Scottish. And then Carla came back as a Viking queen into the English line, because we literally fought on the opposite sides of the same war so that we would learn compassion. Because really in war, there's no winner. And so it doesn't matter. Your opinion is just one side of the coin.
Sure.
And so you got to live the other side of the coin so you can understand the other side.
Learn compassion.
And Carla likes to say, we've all been saints and sinners. We've all made terrible mistakes. And if you look at history, because another question that comes up is, how is it fair for Hitler, who did all the things he did?
Well, that is a good question, because I was going to ask a similar question to that about regarding hell and evil and, Satan and all that. So I'll let you finish, Dave.
Okay. So the first thing you have to know is your soul and consciousness, when it starts, knows nothing. And so it needs the experience. And we need shared experiences to communicate with each other. So we're sent down here together so that we will have shared communication and shared experiences so that we both know what a dog is. We also will both know what love is. Because if we're away from God, we also understand that the absence of love is present. And so then when we develop love down here, we'll feel it. The other thing that happens is an evolutionary step that occurs 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, where man's communication gets to the point where it can make a promise, and no other animal has this communication. Other animals do. Bees can spin one way and the other way, and they tell each other where food is. Birds can squawk and call their people. Chimps can learn up to 3-year-old language.
It's called instinct. I mean, that's what it's been labeled as.
Most of it's instinct, yes. Right. Mm-hmm. But man is the first one who can make a promise or sacrifice today for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because that's the time in the Old Testament where God starts to make covenants with man. Mm-hmm. Because we have that period of time when we can understand if we can change our behavior today, we can get something tomorrow. And that's until you understand that, you can't really do it. And the other thing is, we're all placed in this earth, living on instinct, living on survival of the fittest, because without that, mankind would not have survived. So we did, to begin with, have to kill for food, have to fight our neighbors, have to do those things. But it's our job to overcome that, get the communications down so that we can communicate, learn what love is. And when all those things happen, we return back as the same spark of love which we were created.
Sounds great. And I want to say this has all been fascinating, by the way. This has been great. I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. I have a question of my own, which is, if, let's say, people do bad things, okay?
Yes.
And this is relating again to like if there's a hell or not a hell. I'm a little stuck on that one. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to get clarification. Um, I believe everyone's heard already, like the last about a couple of days ago or over the weekend, there was this big concert called Astro World, where it was a bunch of rap groups that got together, and this was in Austin, Texas, and there was thousands of people there, and apparently, um, people died at that concert, and now typically I would say that's a horrible accident. You know, that's right. Really too bad that and unfortunate that happened. But in the circles that we are in, and the people that we know, and some of the people that we follow in social media and whatnot, it was brought to my attention and other people's attention that this is possibly a satanic ritual that happened. Now, if you have evil, you have to have a Satan. If you have Satan, you have to have evil. And if that's the case, then we are, as humans, are serving this evil for whatever, purposes and rewards or whatever that they're seeking. So if there's not a hell for these people to burn in when they die, where is the justice? Where is the fairness and all, or the karma? I guess it's just the karma, right? I mean, I don't understand.
They're going to come back. And so, Dave, again, I'm going to go back to the Old Testament, not talking about the serpent, which is some sort of footed snake that tried to do Adam and Eve. And, the Old Testament and the New Testament, there's a lot of phone game. That's a 4,000-year-old document that's, wasn't written down for the first 3,000 years. And however that story goes, we get information, but I don't know if we get all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to the book of Job, Satan is a job assigned by God.
The adversary.
Satan is defined as the adversary.
Yes.
It's like the solicitor or a lawyer. It's the adversary. And they're having a discussion in heaven, and they say, Job is a good man. And the angel says, certainly he's a good man. He's wealthy. He's got everything in the world. And God says, well, Job would still be a good man if he was poor. The adversary goes down, says, I'm going to make sure that Job doesn't have anything. And he takes all his money, and his family goes away, and parts of his family die, and horrible things happen.
Mm-hmm. And
God says, okay, Satan, look down there. And Job is a pious, good man who loves God.
Still.
So it's a job. And when the job is over, the angel returns to heaven and joins back with God. So I don't think that Satan is a evil creature. Satan was a job assigned by God. Now, I don't think that those people who want to hook on to evil, there certainly are going to have karma to deal with, because it's going to be fair. But everybody is created with the potential to do good and the potential to do negative activities. We try not to say positive and negative because we get good and bad, because the moral judgment belongs to God. But the lesson, even for the people in Texas, may be that some family member is learning what it's like because they cost somebody else their life because they were drinking or they were doing whatever. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about, I've experienced the time between life for my father who died a few years ago. And I got to watch his atonement or past life review after this life. And found out that my father was a slave trader in the 1600s.
A horrible thing.
And he took people,
so.
and he split the families apart, and he tied and chained men into the bow of his boat and brought them to Bermuda and traded them up into the States or the American territories. In his next life, he lost a wife during childbirth so that he would feel what it was like to separate someone from his family. And in this life, my father, who I would have said was the most wonderful man in the world, was a high school principal, did great things for the city and the school that he worked in. The last 20 years of his life, he was chained to a wheelchair with Parkinson.
Hmm.
That's how part of the lessons we'll learn. So if you go back to Hitler, is it Hitler's fault that everything happened there? Or does that part of our group karma that occurs back when the Babylonians first attacked the Romans, who first attacked the Jews, who first attacked the Christians, the Crusades, every war that happened since then in World War I, and it leads us up to some karma that occurs that we're all still dealing with Hitler and Germany in World War II. Because these are the lessons the world hasn't learned yet.
Mm-hmm.
We have to step up and stop the atrocity before it gets there. We have to stop tribalism and thinking that we're better than they are and they're better than us.
And stop blaming everybody else. Like if we blame Satan, the devil, the demons for our own actions, there again, it's a cop-out. Just like expecting Jesus to save us, we are responsible for our own actions. That's why we keep coming back. We don't take responsibility. We blame everybody else. And that's what's happening in this country right now.
Yeah, something
Dave,
definitely happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what's happening right now. We're splitting apart into groups that hate each other.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I'd like to kind of shift a direction a little bit.
Sure.
And I want to ask about meditation. So,
sure.
Because we don't have that much time left, and I want to at least get into some meditation, and then we can definitely find out where we can find all your books and your websites and everything that we can find you at. And by the way, I would love to have you guys come back on the show, please. I just don't. I feel like this. We just started, and now we got to end. So, so about meditation.
So I'll tell you a few stories because and things that we looked and started to learn about. First of all of this process made us start to look at how to be your best self. Mm-hmm. And with meditation, I was able to calm all that electronic stuff, shut it all off. I started to be a happy physician again. I started treating patients with better. The patients noticed it. I started walking for exercise. But we found out a lot about other things because the first year after I started to meditate, I set a goal to just lose 2 pounds a week. And a year later, I was 104 pounds less.
Nice.
We find out that meditation actually reduces the cortisol, which is the stress hormone that makes people gain weight.
Yes.
We also found that meditation lowers blood sugar. Meditation also lowers blood pressure. Meditation increases dopamine and serotonin, which is in most medications for depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a health way of life. And I had patients that were meditating. I wasn't telling them about some of my other experiences. They were watching me and getting motivated. I had many patients who lost 40 to 60 pounds at the same time going through. We started to teach meditation.
Wow.
With just positive thoughts, not particularly Buddhist, not particularly transcendental, but we used meditation with all positive thoughts. And we would start with a positive thought. We would sometimes read some Buddhist readings. We'd meditate. And all of it was visualization. Carla could take you through it. We played calm music. It's really visualizing the light come through you, purifying, cleaning you, relaxing, shutting off the mind. And it's really about breathing in and breathing out and breathing in and breathing out. And soon you become aware of the darkness that's inside. And as you become aware of the darkness inside, you realize that you're not alone in the space. And when you're not alone in the space, you realize it's those from the other side. It's your spirit guide. God is present. There is consciousness that can be connected to, that is all part of a greater world that most of us never experience. And when we started to experience it, things started to change. And it's really easy to be a happy person when you know that there's a purpose for even our suffering. Because even the suffering is an adversity. When you overcome adversity, it's success. When you break the cycle, like to tell people, everybody knows somebody who was an alcoholic, who had an alcoholic son, who had an alcoholic son. It may be that the first alcoholic father is returning to his alcoholic son because someone has to break the cycle and stop the negative that's happening. It's the same thing with war. Somebody's got to break the cycle. And so that's part of the lessons. If the lesson is love and we start to make loving choices as a group, we will start to reduce the karma and we'll get more and more people home. And as more people come home, the love up there grows. And as the love up there grows, it pulls us up and easier and our vibrations go. And that's part of the purpose of all of the lessons, is that if you make choices out of love, you can make this world a better place.
I like that.
Very true.
Carla, you have anything to add to that?
I just want to say that, like anything else, there's chocolate cake, vanilla cake, lemon cake. They're all cake. Same thing with doing meditation and yoga. Okay? You don't need a fancy class. You don't need to go on YouTube and do a special meditation. You just need yourself and quiet, or we like to play spa-like music just because it's hard for me to turn my mind off and I hear everything. So just something that dulls the noise. Make it part of your everyday, like you would working out or, taking a shower. You have to do it religiously. And if you don't put the work in, it's not going to happen. And we're not saying that you'll have a gift like Dave and all of a sudden all these lives will, surface and that you'll have this great communication with your spirit guide. But your spirit guide will be communicating with you even if you don't know it, and you will feel it. And if you're open to it, things will start to make sense. You might get faces, you might get pictures, you might see lights. And that's all of that is them communicating with you. What you shouldn't do is have fear, because you have a gatekeeper, or you can ask your spirit guide for a gatekeeper. All a gatekeeper does is keep those that are waiting to reincarnate away from you, because sometimes they play little games with you.
Sure.
Because their personalities are very similar to what they were when they were here. So if you don't want to talk to them, for instance, I had a grandmother that was not a very nice person, and she popped in one day. But my mother is my gatekeeper, and she just popped right back out. It's easily done. And if you want to think of it as prayer, Isabella tells us, and this will go against everything that you're taught in church, that when you pray, you don't ask for things. Because if you ask for things, you are not trusting God and the process. God knows best. So if I say anything, I say, please help me to shut the hell up and do what I'm supposed to. Help me to, you know what I mean? That's what you need to do. So quiet
and be
yourself.
grateful for the blessings that you
Yes.
do have.
Right.
If you're not happy with
Thankful.
what you have, you'll never be happy with more.
Yes.
That's
Be
true.
thankful for everything, even if you just get up and it's the sun shining. But don't keep asking, can I have that big house? Can I have this? Can I have that? Why isn't this going my way? You're not trusting the process if you keep thinking you know better.
Sounds
it.
very, yeah, it
That's right.
sounds very good. Yeah, I've always often been told praying is asking, actually, and
See?
Yes.
meditating is listening for the answer. So
Yes, there you go.
that's very, very true and very wise. Yeah, we are out of time, but I just want to be able to give you the opportunity right now to let everyone know where they can find you and everything that's you.
Our website is thegiftofpastlives.com. We have 3 books listed on there. The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. Hell No, Reincarnation with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. And the manual, which talks a lot about angels and how you're prepared to come for your next life.
And how you're created individually, specifically.
And we also have our 4th book, which is not on that website yet. It's called Rehoboam and His Rose. It's a historical novel based in Jerusalem between 0 AD and 70 AD. And it talks about an itinerant preacher who tries to make a difference in the world and sacrifices most of everything he knows.
Fantastic.
Very good.
It's a great story and has lots of Jewish history.
And it's a great love story.
Well, I'm thinking my wife is probably going to like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'll
like it
she
too.
Should get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You will too. It's all kinds of love. It's just not couple love.
Right. No, it's okay. I get it. But no, this has been a fascinating hour. And again, you please have to come back. We'd love to have you back.
Anytime. Say the word.
Yep.
Yes, it was a great show. Russ Bailey, you want to go ahead and take us out?
Hey, you can follow me at Black Sky Paranormal on Facebook, Twitter at bsky_paranormal. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Black Sky UFO, and of course, beyondthestrange.com. We'll be back next week, and I think we're going to have a Pulp Addicts podcast this Wednesday night, correct, Dave?
Yes, we are. We're going to have Elven Magic, Timing Magic with Lisa Allen. So
yes.
We're going to have like a Tolkien type show with all of the good Lord of the Rings stuff and all that. So that's going to be that's our nerd show, by the way. Just so Dave and Carla, you guys know, we do a geeky nerd pop culture show called PAP. So if you guys ever want to join us, more than welcome. Be great.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And just a reminder really quick that Beyond the Strange is copyrighted and owned by Dave Cruz and cannot be simulcast, rebroadcast, or copied without written consent of Beyond the Strange. Also, the views and opinions are not necessarily that of Beyond the Strange, hosts, guests, and affiliated networks. Listeners are encouraged to conduct research and formulate their own opinions. Once again, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. Remember, stay strange. Hasta.